I think you probably know who I am. I hope so after a few years in office. Herman Kornbach, State Senate. I wanted to introduce a few other elected officials we have here. Pam Jochum is the Senate Democratic leader, Senator from Dubuque. From the county level, we have Lucy Martin, our county auditor. There's Lucy. And Selden Spencer from the Soil and Water Conservation Commission. Where's Selden?
Dave.
Selden, stand up and wave. There you go. Soil and water conservation is kind of important, you know, if you care about the soil that grows your food and the water you wash it down with. Make sense? Yeah, okay. We have a few other candidates here. You're going to hear from Mike Wolfe in just a bit, but Margaret Liston. Where's Margaret? Margaret is running for the state Senate district just to the west of me, but her district kind of wraps around the way they redrew the lines a little strangely this year. She's actually got the southeast corner of Ames, and we've been down there door knocking together, and she's working extremely hard. Ryan Condon, where's Ryan? Ryan is running for the House. I tell you, he's going to make a real improvement over Dave Dio, but that's too low. He's going to be super, is what he's really going to be. Let's see, who else we got here? Some former office holders. Jane Halliburton, where is Jane? Jane, wave and smile. There she is. County supervisor for a long, long time and a real pioneer for women in that office. And a hell of a fine supervisor, just plain. Mary Richards, county attorney. There's Mary. One of my several honorable predecessors, Ralph Rosenberg, former state senator, state rep, and a whole lot of other things in this community. We have John Klaus, the city attorney. Where's John? I served with him on city council. He kept me legal and in line, and that was a major accomplishment. And we also have a visitor from Marshalltown. Mike's district goes over into Marshalltown. We have a current member of the city council, Melissa Fonseca. Melissa, stand up and wave. So it's a great crowd tonight. If you look on your programs on the front side here, we've got a whole lot of people that we're thanking because we got such a wonderful crew of volunteers to put together an event like this and to do it time and time again. Maddie Anderson, where's Maddie? Is she here tonight? Okay, Maddie Anderson, our county chair, who handled a lot of the publicity for this, getting stuff up on the web and the Facebook page and all of that, helped to notify everybody. Maddie does a terrific, terrific job. Give her a hand loud enough so she can hear it. Doreen Boyd, where's Doreen? Is responsible for those decorations at the middle of your table. Just wonderful, elegant. Is Sue Dinsdale here tonight? I don't think so. Sue designed the invitation. She does that for me on a regular basis. You know her husband has been in the hospital and is rehab now, has had problems with a knee replacement. So I was very shy about calling her up, and she answered the phone and she said, "I'll bet you need an invitation," before I could even sheepishly ask. And she knocked it out and we got it out in the mail. And Ron, by the way, is coming along. He's in rehab now, he's coming along very nicely. Mary Ann Lundy is back there at the welcome table. Mary Ann has been my county treasurer, my campaign treasurer. not county treasurer, that's another good Democrat, my campaign treasurer for many, many years now. I always say that the job of a campaign treasurer is to keep the candidate out of jail, and so far she's been successful. Sitting at the table with her right there, Lita Sfazione, my better half, she's put up with me for a lot longer even than Mary, 41 years now, so give her a hand. Two people who have taken care of organizing the food here tonight, Phyllis Peters and Barb Wheelock. Where are you guys? Still hard at work back there. Thank you so much. There's Phyllis. Phyllis, wave and smile. There you go. There you go. These people are the folks who are just so critical. You know, they step up all the time and again. Denny Goodrich there with the headphones on, and I don't know if I want to see the film of me tonight, but I'm sure that the other speakers will be super. And so thank you all for all that you're doing and all of the things that you've contributed to tonight. I am particularly honored to introduce our first speaker. I mentioned Pam Jochum, has served in the legislature for 32 years now. She was first elected to the House of Representatives from Dubuque in 1992. She came over to the Senate, what was about 16 years later, and promptly stepped in 2 years later as Senate President. And she presided over this rambunctious bunch of, well, all of us legislators. Democrats had the majority then, so, and we can be rambunctious too. A year or so ago, we had a little difficulty of leadership in our caucus, and so Pam stepped up once again, took over, and has seen us through you read all the newspapers, seen us through one of the most difficult sessions, trying to make some sense out of public policy. The other side doesn't listen very well, but you know, we've been scoring some points there. I think the other side has gone off the deep end, and we've got a bunch of issues. You can see the placards along the wall over there. We've got some winning issues that are going to play well across the state. So, Pam, why don't you come on up and tell us what you've been working on across the state.
Thank you so much, Herman. And first of all, let me just say, hello, Story County Democrats. Thank you so much for your dedication and your commitment to democracy and defending it for many years. And believe it or not, Phyllis and I go back to 1983 when we were both hired to work on Fritz Mondale's campaign for president in the Iowa caucuses. So Phyllis and I go back a few years. I want to begin by thanking Senator Kornbach, Iowa's champion for public education, for hosting and organizing tonight's fundraiser for Mike Wolfe, who's going to be speaking with you in just a few minutes. Mike, I want to personally thank you for running. He contacted me last fall and said, I've had enough. I'm running. But I know when Mike gets elected, he's going to make Iowa a place where our children want to live and work and build a future. So Mike, we're looking forward to having you in the Senate family, and I know you're going to get there because everyone in this room is going to help you get there, right? Believe it or not, today is the 34th anniversary of the passage of the Americans for Disability Rights. Yes, indeed. And that, of course, was championed by our very own Tom Harkin, and it provided millions of Americans with protections against discrimination. Now, that was near and dear to my heart back in 1990, because I along with Arthur Davis, co-chaired Tom's re-election campaign for the United States Senate. And I'm sure it was partly because Tom Talkie was challenging him for that seat, and Tom was from Dubuque. And I had a daughter with disabilities. So I kind of fit the bill. So I have had a long relationship with Senator Harkin, and I'll talk a little bit more about my daughter, Sarah. She passed away a few years ago, and she was truly the center of my life. And I have told people more than once, I learned more from her than any other human being. Because I watched that child, who was pretty much a toddler her whole life. I got every day and saw another human being show me what unconditional love looked like. Every day. It did not matter what color you were, if you were rich or poor, she didn't care. You were here, and that's all that mattered. And I remember one day, and then I'll get on with my speech, but her anniversary is coming up, so this is a little more dear for me at this time of the year. She had just learned to walk, and she and her dad went downtown in Dubuque, and it was a plaza then. And they were walking around, and there was a man sitting on a bench, and he had plastic bags wrapped around his feet. It was November, it was getting cold. And Sarah pulled away from her dad and ran over and hugged him. He was homeless. So when they got home, her dad walks in the door and says, "Your daughter just cost you $100. And I looked at him and said, "Tom, Sarah's 4. How could she cost us $100? So then he told me the story, and he took the homeless man into Trade Home Shoes and bought him winter boots. Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that happen when you no longer see the outside of a person, but understand that they have value for no other reason than the fact that they are here. And that's why we are Democrats. Come on, you guys, we're Democrats because we welcome everybody under our tent. You know, it is absolutely time to break the Republican supermajority in the Senate. And we're going to get it done when we elect Mike Wolfe this coming November. If we would have had just one more Democratic senator in this last session, Mackenzie Snow would not be the director of the Iowa Department of Education today. If just one more. And that's what's going to make a difference. One more Democratic senator will make the difference. So we have to get Mike elected. I think that the word unprecedented has been used so much lately, it's almost become a part of our vocabulary day to day. But this past week can be described as nothing but unprecedented. We all know that just last Sunday, President Biden passed the torch of leadership to Vice President Kamala Harris. And by the way, Kamala. See it? Kamala. A friend of mine lived in California when she was running for Attorney General, and a lot of people in the state of California had a hard time knowing how to pronounce Kamala. So they had the hat made to help people pronounce it right. Kamala. Okay. So what I do know is this, is that Joe Biden has said that he decided to pass that torch of leadership because, in his own words, nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy, and that includes personal ambitions. His strong endorsement of Vice President Harris left no doubt about his respect for her and his belief in her abilities to lead this nation. As a former prosecutor, Kamala Harris knows Donald Trump's type. And she didn't just fall out of a coconut tree, and neither did we. I want to personally thank Joe Biden for his 50 years of dedicated service to the people of this country. You know, he is a good and decent man. His heart is what I believe sets him apart from many others. And his legacy will go down in history as a statesman. When my daughter passed away, of course, Joe Biden heard, and he called. And then he sent this beautiful letter. And then I happened to be at an event for then Abby Finkenauer, who was running for Congress, and Joe was there to help her. Someone told him I was in the audience. He told his staff to go down and get me. And so they brought me back into the holding room, and he just walked up to me and he hugged me and he said, "We belong to the same club now." And then, of course, I was crying. I said, "But Joe, I don't want to." And he said, "It gets better. There's always going to be a hurt, but it will get better as time goes on." That's the Joe Biden I know and love. And I'm going to miss him, but I also know that I have never seen this kind of explosion of energy and enthusiasm for Kamala Harris as I have seen in the past week. We are fired up, we are ready to go like we were in 2008. It's courage, opportunity, democracy, justice, freedom, equality. These are the values that built our country and that still beat in our hearts. And countless Americans paid the price to defend those freedoms, and some with their lives. And it is our duty now to keep that torch of freedom lit for generations to come. And we will keep that torch of freedom lit by electing Kamala Harris as the next President of the United States. And we will keep that torch of freedom lit when we elect Ryan, Christina, Sarah, and Lenan to Congress. Yes. And last but not least, we will keep it lit when we elect Mike Wolfe, Margaret Liston, Ryan, and all the other Democrats running for the Iowa House and Senate, and of course courthouses across Iowa. Democrats, we're going to do it this year because we're going to save democracy. You know, after traveling more than 18,000 miles in the past year since I became the leader again, something I wasn't planning on doing, but here I am because I believe in democracy and I'm going to fight like hell to preserve it like I know all of you are. But after traveling all of those miles, I will honestly tell you that the winds out there are changing. The political winds are truly changing in this state. Amen, hallelujah. Iowans are beginning to realize that the values that we hold dear are under attack by a right-wing extremist movement, not unlike what our veterans fought in World War II. And it's an extremist movement that strips women of their reproductive rights. I think all of you know that this coming Monday, the six-week abortion ban law becomes law. It goes into effect. But make no mistake about it, they aren't done. They're coming after IVF and contraception. Make no mistake about that. An extremist movement that has privatized Iowa's Medicaid system, and I believe now is trying to privatize our public school system. Now, I know from the AEAs how personal it was for me and many other families that have a child with a disability, and you don't mess with Mama Bear. I know how important those AEAs are to children and their families with special needs, but to all children with media services and other educational services that the AEAs provide. And when we get power back, we're going to restore those AEAs back to where they need to be to make sure every child in this state has the services they need. Herman and I have been through what I call the culture war of the MAGA Republicans in Iowa. And we have watched this extremist movement punch down on people with disabilities, on people that are LGBTQ, and they continue to allow Big A to pollute our waterways, our lakes, our rivers, and it has to stop. We need to hold them accountable and start telling the dirty secrets of Big Ag in Iowa. This is also an extremist movement that has protected corporate interests over the people with tax policies that benefit the few. And at the same time, they have now placed limitations on all of us on our ability to hold those very same corporations accountable for the products that they are producing that cause cancer and other health problems. We rank #2 in the country for cancer rates, and the only state where the cancer rate is increasing. And yet they got immunity this year from the Republicans. They are not going to be held accountable for producing Roundup and all the other chemicals that have been proven to be linked to cancer. And last but not least, an extremist movement that turned down $29 million in federal funds to feed hungry children in Iowa this summer. Enough already. It's time for them to go. What time is it? It's time for them to go. Now, we are the party of freedom, the freedom to make our own healthcare decisions without government interference. We are the party of opportunity that ensures that every child deserves a quality public education regardless of their learning abilities, their race, their religion, their gender, their sexual orientation. Our public schools welcome every child that walks through that door, and they nurture them and they love them. And when I hear Kim Reynolds tell me that somehow this is about parental choice, bull. It's private school choice. My child would have never been allowed or been accepted as an enrollee in a private school because of her disability. It is private school choice. And by the way, I'm a product of private education. I live in Dubuque. What can I say? Back then, most of us went to private school. We are the party that created Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, early childhood education, the Affordable Care Act, child labor laws, the Americans with Disabilities Act, expanded voting rights, worker rights, and the list goes on. You guys, there's so much to be proud of to be Democrats, because when we have power, people's lives are simply better. Since last December, our 20 candidates running for the Senate have knocked on 37,000 doors of persuadable voters. Now that is commitment. And this year they have outraised the Republican opponents. They've sent out 15,000 handwritten postcards to inactive Democrats. We are on the path to win, and Kamala Harris sitting the ticket gives me more hope than ever before. We know democracy is hanging by a thread. We know that. Every election is important, but this one really is incredibly important. The soul of America is at stake. The decisions that are going to be made at that ballot box in November will determine our fate for many decades to come. Elections are won here at the local level. This is where the rubber hits the road. And that's why in the coming 101 days, every one of us needs to burn the shoe leather, get blisters on our fingertips from texting and making those phone calls to voters, and our wallets are going to be a little lighter by November. But it's going to be all worth it when we win and democracy prevails. Let me close by saying this. We choose moving forward, not backward. We choose hope over hate, unity over division, freedom over fascism. As Harry Truman said, I never did give them hell, I just told them the truth and they thought it was hell. Let's raise some hell and let's make some good trouble. Let's win in November. Thank you, Story County Democrats. And now, Mike Wolfe.
Thank you so much, Pam and Senator Kernbach and everybody who came here. I am really humbled to see this many people here to see me talk. It's probably a first, and I really appreciate your time and effort getting here. As Pam touched on earlier at the start of her speech, I met with her last November and I told her, I am ready for change. And I went through and told a story about how I had met with Representative Dave Dio, and really hadn't had very much to said back to me about him. Later on, I did try and speak with him again. I called him on the phone while I was at work, because, you know, day jobs. And I was back in the break room at my construction company that I work at. And I was trying to be persuadable. I was doing my best to, you know, use good reasoned arguments. And the things that he just kept saying back, you know, I'm stacking up my construction language in the back of my head and just doing my best to be just kind and courteous. And I think when he said the word social contagion, I was like, so we finished the conversation. I was positive I got nowhere, but I hung up the phone, and again, in the break room at my construction office, and the words that I've been stacking up, they all came out. And the reason I keep emphasizing that it was at a construction office is they sent the safety guy to come check on me. So you can, I think, recognize the level of frustration that came out. So, you know, I am ready for change. And there's a lot of things in Iowa that need changing right now. And the good news is that Iowans beyond this room are also ready. I was door knocking in Kelly the other day with Senator Kernbach, and the lists that we're using are persuadables. So they're not necessarily only registered Democrats. It's if somebody would reasonably listen to who I am and who I'm running for and not slam the door on me or get mad that I interrupted their day, those are the people we're going to go talk to. And as we were walking through one of the neighborhoods, there was a group of gentlemen that was decidedly not on my list that were looking really busy going back and forth between a couple of houses setting up a barbecue. It's like, they look busy, they're not on my list. So I just kept going. But Iowa mailboxes and house signs are not good. So as I'm flipping through my clipboard trying to figure out where am I, one of the guys is like, "What are you doing?" You know, small town Iowa. He's taking care of his neighbors. Like, "Well, I'm trying to run for office." He says, "Well, you didn't talk to us." Well, so I went and talked to him. And he started off with, you know, my name's Mike Wolfe. I'm running for Iowa Senate. And he's like, "Well, what do you think of Trump?" I was like, "Well, you know, he's not really my guy." He's like, "Whoa!" He was ready to be done talking to me. Absolutely ready to be done. But it's like, you know, I'm not here to talk to you about Donald Trump. I'm here to talk to you about what I stand for. And what I stand for is rebuilding Iowa's public school system. Because right now our private vouchers are taking money out of rural schools, like the Ballard school system that your kids would go to here in Kelly. And suddenly that man was ready to listen. He was ready to listen. Because they know that when you start taking apart your rural schools, you start taking apart your rural towns. And that's going to be the end of places like Kelly. And I tell you, after that conversation that we had with that man, I left that night with with my yard sign in his yard. There's another one of the issues that Iowa is really ready for change on, and that's the taking apart AEA system, the area education system. As Pam said, that's really dear to a lot of people in Iowa. You know, when that was really getting a lot of attention was still early in the session, when I was still gathering signatures to get ballot access. And I attended a forum in Marshalltown where Senator Jeff Edler did actually show up to talk to his constituents. It may have been one of the only times. But as he sat there repeating the Republican talking points and completely ignoring the very impassioned pleas of all the parents that showed up to ask him not to, he just lost the room. No one there was ready to back him or his position, but it didn't matter to that man. And it was clear to everyone there. So after the end of that, and when he had gone, I stayed around to try and gather some signatures for my ballot access from like-minded people. And one of the gals had heard me talking. She wasn't really engaged with me, but she could tell what I was talking about and my support for the ADAs and opposition against what Senator Edler was saying. And she came up to me and said, "Can I still sign your petition if I'm a Republican?" I was like, "Well, absolutely you can. It's not a promise that you're going to vote for me, but let's talk about it this way. Which one of us, Senator Edler or I, is going to support you and your family?" And I had a voter right there. And, you know, I think my job has gotten a little bit easier that Senator Edler, the incumbent, is not running. But I would not have a hard time running against his record on the AEAs. One of the other issues that people are angry about, really ready for change on, is the eminent domain issue. I mean, for years there's been trucks on the side of Interstate 35, stop eminent domain abuse. And what did we do this last couple of sessions? Anything but that. People are angry. My friend Ryan Condon, running for House 51, one of his opponents for that seat has decided that Ryan is the person to back now instead of the guy who won the primary, because Ryan is on the right side of eminent domain abuse. It takes a lot to convince somebody who thought they were going to be a Republican candidate for the Iowa House to decide to back a Democrat publicly. So it's a good thing for Ryan to be on the right side of this issue. It's a better thing for people to be ready to hear our united opposition against taking private ground for profit for somebody else. And again, I mentioned a little bit earlier that all of this has me ready for change. And I'd spoken with my elected officials, and for all that they cared about, I was just another guy on the side of the road holding the sign up, just driving by. They don't have to stop and listen to what I have to say. But what nights like tonight really emphasized to me is the difference between a guy, you know, holding the sign on the side of the road and somebody holding the banner, leading the charge, is all of you people who came here to see what I had to say, and all of you people who came to donate and showed that you believe in me and are ready to back me in this race to get to the State House and make those changes. So thank you for your support. So I am here asking for your support. I am here asking to help you, or for you to help me make this change. We are all ready for it. And the way we get that done is we're just going to go talk to more people. You all know more people than I do, I'm sure about that. Just tell some of your friends, you know, I met this guy. He's got some things to say. He's got some ideas about putting Iowa back on the right path. We're going to put us on a path where we're building our future instead of taking apart our institutions. We're going to invest in our children's education instead of putting money in a crony's pocket. We're here to build Iowa again. And I hope this is just one step on that whole path. And I really thank you all for coming out and helping me on my way. I've been informed we're going to start a hat pass, so anything that you could donate, I would certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, you do know what comes next. This is a Democratic event, and you have been to a few Democratic events before. We're going to pass the hat. Margot McNabb taught me well. And so we're going to have to do it. And I brought along a few hats. You can take one, and Pam, you can take one, and Jim, thank you. All right. So if you can spare a couple extra bucks for somebody who is out there working hard, and you just saw him and you heard him and you know what a good impression he's going to make, but we've got to get a few bucks for yard signs and stuff like that. Let me add a couple of remarks of my own. Usually when we do a hat pass, it's covered with bad jokes and dad jokes and bad puns and groaner and stuff like that. I wanted to say something a little serious about two people. The first person is Joe Biden. The announcement that Joe Biden made last Sunday and elaborated on TV the other night is an act of political patriotism, the likes of which I have never seen in my life. Patriotism is about putting country before self. It's about putting the common good before any personal gain or ambition. And that's what Joe Biden has been doing his whole life. All of his adult life, he has been devoted to public service. And becoming president certainly was an ambition of his. He first ran for president in 1988. That's, 2 years before Lee and I even got to Iowa. Ran again in 2008. Finally ran again in 2020 and finally got the nomination. And God bless him, he beat Donald Trump. But he wasn't running. He wasn't running for ego. He wasn't running for power or glory. He certainly wasn't running for lining his pockets, unlike some president we know. Joe Biden was running for the right reason, to help people. And he reached out to people like Sarah Jochum. And he reached out to people like Paul Hedens and kept up conversation or correspondence with them over a number of years. And when he was sitting on top of a wonderful record of accomplishment, he didn't get nearly enough credit, a wonderful record of accomplishment, and ready to serve another term, but he comes to the realization that if he tries to pursue that, it could end in disaster, which is to say a second Trump administration. So this guy made the patriotic sacrifice of giving up on a lifetime ambition to pass the torch to Kamala. She had to translate her hat for me. I love that. Kamala. To pass the torch to Kamala Harris. He will continue as president for the next 6 months. Lord help us. I hope that he can bring peace to Gaza. I hope that he can continue to provide support to the freedom fighters in Ukraine. I know that he's doing a great job at bringing down inflation and 16 million new jobs. This is the model of a public servant and the model of a public patriot. The other person I want to talk about is a little more local. It's Irv Kloss. You all know Irv. He was the key member of the environmental movement in Ames and Story County for decades. He combined his passion and his vision with his professional expertise in inspiring people and leading people to do things to protect the environment and to help us all enjoy our outdoor recreation. Now, he's most famous for, and I knew him best because back in 2001, he led the effort to establish Ada Hayden Heritage Park. And it was a big effort. There are a lot of other people here. Most of you in this room I know were involved. I know Jim Pease and Cindy were a leader. Kay and Roger Berger. Where's Kay? There's Kay, mom and pop of the park down there. It was such an amazing effort. We had to pass a bond referendum, $5 million. And just to set the context, remind you a little bit, 2001, the national economy was just recovering from a recession. We'd already passed a bond issue that June for the 3rd fire station down on South Duff. And of course, it was 2 months after 9/11. This community had all kinds of reasons to just sit on their wallet. But Irv led that effort and inspired a lot of people, and we went out there and we knocked on doors. Ted Tedesco was out knocking on doors in his Bermuda shorts. Now that was a vision. Bipartisan support, both sides of the aisle. We got 86% in that bond referendum. And we renovated that park, and we stabilized the beaches and turned a couple of old worn out gravel quarries into the most amazing, wonderful park that we have today. If you go on out here tonight, if you're going on home over to the east, just take 190th Street on across Carver and look to your south, or turn on Hayes there and look to the east and see that park. And you'll understand once again how wonderful a contribution that was. You know, I went by, it was, a year or two ago during the winter, and I was driving up 69 Grand Avenue, and I looked over the park and I saw something that I had never seen before. The parking lot was empty. I had never seen that. And I was driving out on an errand late the other night, and I drove up by the park, and I was thinking about that, and sure enough, the car in front of me, 11 o'clock at night, the car in front of me turned into the park. That park gets so used and so enjoyed and so appreciated by so many people, and Irv Kloss and all of the others who worked so hard to establish that. Irv passed away recently. There's a memorial service at 2 o'clock tomorrow at the Unitarian Fellowship. I would encourage all of you to go. I would suggest if you're going to go, you ought to get there early, because it's going to be way overcrowded, but it's going to be a good group of people to spend time with. So thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for supporting Mike. Thank you to Pam to make the trip from Dubuque to inspire us. Thank you to all of you. I have faith in this community. I have faith in this country. We're going to take it all. We're going to take it back. You know, the Republicans are drunk with power, especially in this state. How drunk are they? Drunker than a freshman at a fraternity kegger. That's how drunk they are. Book banning and eminent domain and undercutting AEAs and defunding public education, and most of all, interfering with a woman's right to choose. They think they can tell people who can have children and when and how. And it's none of, I'm sorry, it's none of their damn business. Okay, so that's my non-humorous hat pass. Thank you again all for coming tonight. Thank you once again to all of the people that we have. And Phyllis wants to come say something. Oh, yeah, apparently we have a few leftovers. So take some fruit and crackers and whatever is over there. I didn't get a chance to sample even myself. It was all so wonderful. All right, hey, thank you so much for your support, and we'll be working with you this fall.